Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for being here. I know we overran a little bit, but thank you so much for staying. And so, first of all, when I was invited to share at this event, I was actually very, very excited. And then I saw the list of panel of speakers, and I got so nervous because we have the gold and the silver. But I'm still very honored to stand here to share this with you. And I think our co-leaders and our silver Nadia shared very, very insightful content today for all of us to take back home. And I hope what I have to share today is also something that you can think about as well. But I'm not here to share strategies. I want to share my journey, and I hope from there, then there are some lessons to bring back as well. Okay. So so I just want to be truthful about my journey here. Okay, so you can see from dreamer to doer. Um, Actually, right before for life, I wasn't someone who actually has a huge dream. Okay. But I found for life, or rather, for life found me. And when I first across for life, right, I didn't join the business with the mindset of okay, I'm gonna join and let me achieve something out of this. It was never that. Okay. Like I said, I wasn't looking for life. For life found me. And strangely enough, I think this is why this title means a lot to me to share this today from dreamer to doer, because I learned how to dream after I joined for life. Okay, and somewhere along the way, I also learned that dreaming alone doesn't change anything. Okay, because at some point you have to become the person who does something about that dream. Okay, so today, yeah, like I say, I'm not going to be sharing strategies. I'll share my story about how an ordinary person like me took the decision from someone who wasn't even looking for this business to the person standing here today. Okay, slide. Okay, so this is before for life. This was my world. You can see that. That is me 10 years ago. So I spent 6 years now. It's my for life is my sixth year and counting. So I spent 13 years in the tech industry. And I want to make it very clear that I actually loved my job back then. I enjoyed doing what I did. Okay, and because sometimes, right, when we hear when people share about network marketing stories, it sounds like everybody hated their job and was desperately looking for an escape, you know. But I wasn't looking. I wasn't that person. I wasn't looking for another career back then. I mean, 13 years in the same company. That says a lot. And I was doing business development, sales training as well. So I think, like, why would anybody want to do network marketing? Get a proper job. I was that person. Oh, yeah, I was that person. But now look at me. Network marketing is my profession. And I think that's very important to share because sometimes, okay, the person who is the most resistant to an opportunity isn't necessarily the wrong person. Okay? And yeah, sometimes they haven't seen what you have seen yet, and I was that person. Okay, next. So then life happened, okay, and somehow for life entered my world. And again, I didn't search for it, for life found me. And what caught my attention, I think this is also something that the common thing that our leaders before this, our co-leaders and our silver shared, and even Trevor shared, the people, what caught my attention at first is not just the product or the business opportunity or the compensation plan. It was the people. It was the community. And I started spending time around people who thought differently from me. Okay? They were building something, they were ambitious, at the same time, they were willing to help somebody grow. And especially when I started being around the leaders and the professional networkers in for life winners, okay, I became very, very curious. Okay, because and that curiosity actually was the thing that led me to stay. You know, because when I joined, I didn't have anything mapped out, right? I told you that I wasn't looking for this opportunity, so I didn't know what to expect. But I stayed long enough to see another possibility for my life, and I think that's all the dream needs in the beginning, not certainty, but possibility. Okay, next. And this is where my journey really started changing. Okay, because I had learned how to dream. Okay, and that sounds strange, right? Because I think when we were little, when we were young, we all had dreams, right? We want what we want to be when we grow up. Want to be a doctor, want to be a lawyer, and all those kind of things, which is not wrong, right? We all have dreams at the very beginning, but then when life happens and we reach adulthood, we start to become practical, right? Study very hard, get a good job, get good grades, get paid very well, get a good salary, maybe get promoted. Now, there's nothing absolutely wrong with that at all. I mean, I went through that path. Studied very hard, went into university, got a job in tech, and then I did very well to my job, right in my job. But being around these wonderful mentors and wonderful leaders here in the community, they taught me to look at life differently. So instead of only asking what job do I want, I started to ask what kind of life do I want. Instead of asking myself like how much money I want out of this, I started asking what impact can I create, and how many people I can help grow. So, and then I also definitely started to observe them, especially my leaders, thank you, Boss Ridwan, Boss Sarah, and first line, Boss Nadia as well. And then, of course, we have Boss Nazrul. I watch, I really observe them. I watch how they think, I watch how they handle challenges, how they invested themselves, and also how they invest in the people in the organization. And slowly that kind of changes my definition of what is possible over here. Because sometimes you just need to surround yourself with this kind of people in order to achieve what they have, which is what you want. Right? So they really expand my belief in that sense of what is possible. And then I started to believe differently and I started to dream differently. Okay, next. So, but of course, learning is not enough. There was a lot of unlearning for me coming into this profession and coming into this business and the company as well. And I think for me, the unlearning was actually really, really hard. It was a hard thing. Because after spending 13 years in corporate, that kind of already taught me a certain way to look at success. Okay, you work hard, you become good at what you do, and you move up. But then I was suddenly in an environment where success required a completely different set of muscles. Okay, and I had to unlearn that being busy automatically doesn't mean being productive. That is one thing. That one was difficult for me, I think, because I think in corporate usually, we work very, very long hours, you think it's all productive, but in the business, it's not necessarily that way. And the thing about me, right, I actually like to know what I'm doing. But coming into here, I have blank slate. I have no idea what I got myself into. Okay, but then leadership doesn't wait until you are ready. Even in business, it doesn't wait until you are ready. So I have to change the way I look at failure. And a failed attempt doesn't mean that we are a failure. And a no doesn't mean it's a stop. It simply means you learn, you adjust, and just go again and again and again And that was what I did. And I think this is where the dreamer in me suddenly, slowly started to become a leader. Because I stopped feeling ready, wanting to feel ready. Okay, next. And then of course you get moments like this. Okay, people see the photo, they see the recognition, they see the glory, they see the rank, they see everyone smiling. But people don't see the ordinary days that we have to go through to get here, which is attending the trainings, attending the events, all the no's we had to face, the rejections. And then, of course, when there are days that there will be things that work, but there will also be days where you feel like you're doing everything, but you're not progressing in your business. So I go through those days as well. Okay? And that's why I think this photo means something to me because my bronze was not built on one extraordinary moment. It was a lot of things that led up to it. And it's also because I don't look at this picture and say, you know what, I made it. Because there are a lot of people involved, for this recognition to happen. I have my leaders in the photos with me, was Sarah, was Ridwan and his wife was Atik as well, and my team. And then of course, our customers and all that. These people around me, okay, they were the ones who believed in me. They were the ones who supported me, taught me and walked alongside me. So when I say dreamer to doer, it doesn't mean doing everything alone. It actually means taking responsibility for my part. Okay? And the dream that I had, that I started to, build when I came into For Life, that gave me something or somewhere to go. But actually, the action that I took was what started to take me there. Okay? Next. And of course, somewhere along the journey, something else also happened. Okay, which I didn't expect at all. Like again, just coming to you, just do. That's the thing that one of my mentors say, buat sampai jadi. So you don't know apa nak jadi. Tapi buat aja, right? And then, but benda tu akan terjadi. So buat aja. Just do it blindly. Buat buta-buta, buat gila-gila. That's what what Hisham said. Buat buta-buta, buat gila-gila. You don't know what's coming, you don't know what to expect, but it's okay. The system is there, it's already proven. Just do it crazily. Okay? So that was, and then do it crazily, and then this happened to me, and I was like, whoa, okay, wow. There is this thing now. For Life now has become something way bigger than just a business for me. Because I found my community. I could travel with all the wonderful incentive trips that For Life has to offer. And I know that money was wonderful. And the higher rank and what? Also the President's Club, I see all those at the website. So interesting, okay? And I met people who probably I would never have crossed paths with if I haven't, just made that decision to move. And I found myself saying yes to experiences I never imagined I would be saying yes to. Like interviews. Yesterday we had an interview with Vida. Speaking on stage like today, right now, leadership. And traveling across the world and meeting affiliates from other countries as well. So sometimes, right, we become so focused in what we are going to get from the opportunity that we don't realize who we are going to become because of it. So yes, business results matter. Income matters, yes. Rank also matters, yes. I wouldn't say it's not important at all. But when I look back at all these photos and there's more, I had such a trouble to select what photos to show because there's so many. There's so many I want to share. But then when I look back, the greatest return I feel for me, it is this journey that you can never put into the compensation plan. The confidence, the friendship, the community, the skills, the experiences, everything. And and definitely, of course, the person I become along the way. Okay, next. So, and then I also take a look at pictures like this. And I think, how did I get here? Ooh. Because the woman who spent 13 years in tech and thought network marketing or network marketers should go out there and get a proper job. That person would probably never believe, if you showed her this photo. I went from sitting in the audience learning to being to be asked to speak today, from learning from other leaders, okay, to having people who now look for me for leadership, from someone who wasn't looking for this opportunity to building my profession around it. And I don't say that because I think I'm extraordinary, no. Actually, I think it's the opposite. Because I think my story matters because I'm not extraordinary. I just keep showing up. One training, one event, one conversation, one uncomfortable opportunity to do more, one yes and one next step. And sometimes I think that's what courage really looks like, when not knowing exactly how everything will turn out. I keep saying this because it's really true. But taking the next step anyway. Okay? Next. So, I would like everyone in this room to live with this today. Maybe some of you sitting here today already have a very clear dream. You know exactly what you want. And maybe some of us are still figuring it out. But I want you to know that that's okay too, because I did it, right? I didn't walk into life carrying some massive dream. I found an opportunity. I found the people. I found mentors. I found a bigger version of myself. So maybe your first step isn't knowing exactly where you want to be, maybe 5 years from now, but maybe your first step is to be willing to see what is possible. Then, when you find something worth pursuing, believe enough to take that first step, and then another, and then another. Because eventually, dreaming has to meet the doing. So before we leave the room today, let's all ask ourselves one question. What is the next step that we can take today that our future self will thank us for? Not next month, because not when everything is perfect, not when we are all completely confident. No, don't wait. Today. Because I have learned that one ordinary decision can lead you to a life that you have never planned, and it's so awesome, and turn you into the person that you would never expect that you would one day become. I wasn't looking for life. Life found me. And if you have been presented with life, take it. Okay. Yes. Because you know what I chose to do after he found me, that part was up to me. And I'm so grateful that I jumped. Nothing to lose, right? So dream, believe, and do. Thank you.